The most common traits amongst entrepreneurs is their ability to be completely self-aware. They're aware of their strengths, but they're also very aware of their fears and their limitations, and they operate with this knowledge. Awakhiwe Kona is very aware of himself. He allows no one to place boxes on him. As someone who studied actuarial science at the University of the Witwatersrand, it is surprising to society that he would be into fashion, but not to him because he is completely aware of himself. As someone who has a keen interest in playing the piano, designing fashion, but also being in the corporate space, this guy is sure to not only break boundaries and leave a legacy, but to inspire us not to put boxes on ourselves, not to limit ourselves, and not to allow others to limit us. Suitability is a bespoke brand that caters for female and males by designing them custom-made suits. He has now launched Suitability Bridal, which designs custom-made bridal gowns. This brand is sure to become bigger than it is even now, because the guy behind it is not only self-aware, passionate, and very determined to get to where he wants to be, but also someone who is passionate about leaving a legacy and someone who is humble. And you can clearly see, even just from the design of the place, how passionate he is about his brand and the service that he brings. So guys, do remember the name Awakhiwe Kona, because you are bound to see it in many places.
So hi Awakhiwe, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So I mean, as far as I understand, you grew up in the Eastern Cape and then Soweto. So take me through what that has taught you, your formative years, and moving in between the two different areas.
Okay, so I was born in a town called Ukatyan in the Eastern Cape, and I had to move to Soweto at a later stage. Some family setup issues, but it was just part of the growing in my understanding where I got to understand. I mean, where I got the foundation of what I love. So, which is fashion and actuarial science, so getting to live with my grandfather in Soweto. He was a fashionista, and basically he's the guy who gave me my first jacket. And yeah, the experience was deep in terms of moving to Soweto, where there are people who are more creative, right, and they make fun of the way you speak.
Yeah.
And I had to learn Itsotsital to try and compensate, because it was part of an inferiority complex moving into a space like that. But I would say I grew up a nerd and a geek, but I loved fashion. Looking back, that's what I realized.
Okay, it's interesting that you say looking back, because I think sometimes we sort of when we look back we realize what it is that we loved, but at the time we didn't realize. So what do you think in your growing up, when you look back, made you fall in love with fashion, besides the fact that your grandfather loved it? Because I mean, there are people in our families who do certain things, but we don't necessarily gravitate towards it. So why fashion?
So to be quite frank and honest, the love for fashion grew more when I started working, right? So I always knew I loved looking good. I mean, from the career choices that I've made as a kid, right? So I always wanted to be an engineer.
Yeah.
And then I figured out that engineers are people who basically wear overalls on a daily, and I don't get to wear a suit.
Yeah.
So the love for suits and looking good
Yeah.
just drove my love for fashion, basically. But I'll say, as a kid, I remember my mom told me that as a 2-year-old, I'll play with other kids, and the moment a drop of water gets onto my clothes, I run home and get a change.
Wow.
I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, so you're very like rare in that you straddle two sides. So you've got the logical, which is your actuary, side. As far as I understand, you've also worked for FNB. You worked for the Discovery Bank project, and now you've got the whole suitability studios that's growing significantly. Like, explain to me those different dynamics in your personality, being able to be logical and creative at the same time.
Okay, so I think I'm very passionate about being an idiot and looking different and doing different things from what everyone else is doing. I remember in high school, I would work so hard to pass just to differentiate myself from other people. And at the same time, I would also do things that other people, I mean, when other kids are playing soccer, I'd opt to go swim or play cricket just to be different. So that's one thing I've loved. When it comes to juggling the two opposites, right? I mean, it's either you're a fashion designer or you're a geek.
Yeah.
You can't be both,
Can't be both,
you know?
yeah.
So for me, it honestly happened as I don't know, it was just something that I grew into, you know, in terms of fashion, for example. So for actuarial science, it's something that I enjoyed. I liked it. I mean, I didn't have any reservations about it. But when fashion came along, I fell in love with it, and it defines me more than actuarial science does. So that's been me, and yeah, I think it's what I want to relate to more in terms of who I am and what I stand for as a person.
And then what do you think drives you being so, driven to be different? Because a lot of people have dreams and ideas, but they don't necessarily go for them. What makes you want to go for your dreams, want more for yourself, and to want difference?
Okay, so I mean, starting out in corporate, my biggest dream was to climb the corporate ladder, you know, and growing deep into the corporate space, I got to understand that climbing the corporate ladder is such a beautiful thing. But the things that I want to achieve for myself is bigger than just a banker who worked for this project and made the bank fly or whatever it was. But I realized that I want people to remember my name generations after. So that drives me more than anything else. So in terms of my industry, the fashion industry, what drives me more is I want to differentiate myself. I don't want people to say Suitability and next to it say another brand that deals in the stuff that I do. No,
Yeah.
people must know that Suitability is not just a brand. We are pushing things that people would have never imagined. So in all the innovation that we do, in expanding the group to the services that we offer, I always strive to make sure that people know who I am. So I don't like I don't like crowded places. I don't like being famous, but I like people to know my name.
That's powerful. Yeah.
So that's what's been, and the other passion, of course, is I don't like being hungry. So I'm very passionate about
That's
food.
fair.
Yeah.
So I mean, now you've extended into Suitability Bridal, right? So why the extension? Why the interest in women's wear? Where does that come from?
So for me, the idea of a wedding is something that I like and I love it. It's something that girls, when they grew up, they were taught that you need to look up to your wedding day. And guys, it has never been that. I mean, all the clients that we meet a lot of wedding clients, right, who are guys, and they come and say, oh no, I'm waiting for my wife to come through for this appointment. I know she'll have to make all the decisions.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do is move from the culture of that the wedding is about the lady, right? Because what ends up happening is men end up not becoming as invested, in the whole process. The wedding is just a tip of what a relationship becomes after you get married, So for me, it's all about trying to make sure that, number one, men take weddings seriously, right? When we do the bridal stuff, right? So the bridal is just to grow a family, right? So the family, imagine being dressed at the same place by the same people. A wedding is an experience. You get to learn things. You get to learn things that you didn't know about each other. So for me, it's a holistic approach in terms of what the wedding industry is. Just to hold you there, we are also working on a wedding venue, right? So this is also, how can I put it? It's just an expansion of the brand Suitability. So Suitability Premium, which is the suits, Suitability Bridal, which looks after the bridal wear, and then the Suitability Gardens, which will be the venue where people get to experience their weddings at. So that's really the the idea behind all those brands.
That's really amazing. I would love you to take me through sort of what do you do to ensure that you're always growing your courage and your mind for business? Because I think sometimes when people hear, oh, business, they think I could never do that. So, I mean, take me through a step-by-step process of how you sort of gear yourself up to do these projects and to move forward.
Okay, so one thing I've learned is there's a big obsession in South Africa about people getting funding.
Yeah.
So I want to get funding, but too, I need a business to get off the ground. For me, it has always baffled me. So when I started this whole idea of suitability, it was just a jacket that I bought. There's a place called Kwatunus in Joburg.
Yeah.
You know, buy a second-hand jacket, right? And then I'll trim it to fit me, and then take it to a dry cleaner just to get rid of the other stuff that I don't need, and wear the jacket. People come and go, oh wow, you're very well dressed. And they don't know I spent literally 50 Rand and 100 Rand for the alteration, another 50 Rand for adjustments.
Yeah.
Sell the jacket for 400 Rand. I've got nothing to lose, right? And then, well, the money I take it, I invest it, right? So that has always been my philosophy. I mean, external funding is something that I haven't gotten up until this point. It has always been, okay, if it's a good idea, if it's a good project, let it fund itself.
Yeah.
You get to a point, however, where you need to expand and you need to go vigorous on it. That's when probably you need funding. But my idea is, number one, when you want to start something, if you've got it in your mind and you've conceived and perceived what it will be, right? And if you've managed to think about it, just the idea, there's no reason why not to consider pursuing it. So that's it. That's the first thing. And number two, I want to be a web developer, but no, I want to develop apps or whatever. No, I don't have a laptop, so I need money for the laptop. You can use an internet cafe. You don't need to own means of production. For the longest time, Suitability has worked with tailors that were outsourced. We would outsource our work. At this point, we insource our work because we've grown to the point whereby we cannot afford to outsource the stuff. It becomes a bit of a problem. But if you look at the biggest brands like your Ubers, your Airbnb, they don't own any product, any cars. They don't own any properties. They just use a cloud to run this whole thing. So you don't need to own anything. You can do your web developing in an internet cafe. People need to just change their mindset and open up to broader things.
That's very powerful. And I think, closing things off, how would you describe yourself as a leader? I'm sure running this kind of thing, you've had many instances with employees. And so what have you learned from those instances and in growing with employees? And the second part of the question being, what kind of leader do you think you are now?
So, I mean, I've done a lot of growing in terms of interacting with people. The first thing that I've learned is listen to people, right? Listening to someone is like a bribe. Once a person speaks, it shouldn't be about, I'm telling you about my problems and then, oh no, I was away with my wife or whatever, or for the weekend, I did this, I did that, right? And then my child is 10 years old. The following day, you ask that person, how's your kid doing? How's that 10-year-old doing? People get the feeling that, because at the end of the day, you're not working with machines, you're working with people, and then you ask, how's your 10-year-old doing? And then people feel they open up, and if you have such a relationship with the people that, I don't want to call anyone an employee, I don't employ people. People work towards achieving goals with Suitability. So
that's powerful.
Whatever happens at Suitability affects them directly. So it's the owner-manager culture that I prefer. People have to be well vested in the brand and all that. So, I mean, that's what I've learned as a leader. And a leader, I believe that you shouldn't be on a pedestal, the hierarchy. No, you can't talk to me without sending an email. You can send me a WhatsApp, let's talk, that's one thing that people don't get as leaders.
That's beautiful. So I know you, as a fun point, you play the piano. What else do you like to do for fun?
Okay, I play a bit of chess.
Okay.
And to be quite frank, as far as, I mean, I used to do a lot of stuff. I tried the saxophone, I tried a violin, but it just fell off. In terms of the piano as well, it's been a while without playing a piano because I get so busy and then things get mixed up. But it has taught me a lesson that, you know, however busy you get, you need to make time for the very important things in your life, things that allow you to relax. Because at the end of the day, this is just temporary.
That's true.
Yeah,
Speaking of important things, I hear your girlfriend was an assistant in the idea of suitability.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so she actually came up with the whole concept,
Wow,
right?
that's
And
great.
because how she came up with the concept, it was we're just chilling, and then it's like, yo, you're getting so much. Because I mean, I'll buy jackets,
Yeah.
right, for my own consumption,
Yeah.
really, and then I'll just get them altered and wear them, and people went crazy about this. It's like, oh, you know what, you can make money out of it. Jokingly, I was like, say no more, and then that's how it started, you know. So I think she's a visionary, and she's someone who really, how can I put it, when she says stuff, she's thought of it very well, right, and she doesn't implement. I implement. And and a lot of people really, I think it's something that a lot of people don't do. People have great ideas, but people are scared. What are people gonna say, you know? And if you're scared, I think the first thing is you shouldn't care, you know, about what people say. If it fails, then you move on with your life.
Yeah.
You've learned a thing or two, then life goes on.
Yeah, and my last question would be, before I ask what impact you'd like to leave in the world, is, you know, I mean, with everything that's going on in the country and so forth, with regards to women, what do you think makes you so committed to your relationship and being, you know, the man that you are towards her and speaking of her in such a high regard?
I think we are tasked as men, you know, men. Let me say this: men are so dangerous that they're even dangerous to each other, you know. And we are tasked as men to actually make sure that we build each other. We build the women around us, you know. You shouldn't allow your woman to be exposed to anything negative in any case, right? That's the first thing. And as a man, if you are to grow as a man like that, it's something that our parents' generation didn't get or have, you know. They didn't have that thing of protecting our mothers from anyone else. So if you are to have, if you speak highly, if you teach yourself that, okay, this is my wife, or this is my girlfriend, or this is my sister, or whatever, you speak positivity about them. It teaches the generation that's gonna come after us, which is your kids, right? If they see how you treat your wife, they'll learn a thing or two from that. You know, there are people who are abusive today, not because it's, I mean, not that I'm justifying it, but because of the environment that they grew up in rather. So it's very important that the women in your life, they're exposed to a lot of negative things, and the most important thing that you can do as a man is lift them up. So you're lifting them up in anything, be it business, because men have egos, right? Men believe in, okay, I need to make more money than my wife or whatever. And if it so happens that they earn more than you sabotage them.
Yeah.
For me, if my wife earns a lot more than me, I can drive my S65 in peace. I'm happy. She can buy it for me. It's fine. So her win is my win. So it's very important that we uplift each other as a society.
Thank you. That's beautiful. This interview has been amazing, and I think you're powerful, and I think you're going to continue to do powerful things. So yeah, like I said, my last question is, what impact do you want to leave in the world? Or in other words, what do you want to be remembered for?
So I don't want to be remembered for fashion. I want to be remembered for building something that people thought was impossible. I want to be remembered for defying the status quo. I want to be remembered for making differences in people's lives, you know. I want to be remembered for employing young people. I want to be remembered for making sure that young people believe in themselves more. The people that I work with, I always encourage them, you are bigger than that. I mean, you can make money from Suitability, but if you've got another venture that you'd like us to venture in, we'll fund it if we've got the resources, and let's do it. So I want to impact people's lives. I think that's the most important thing in life, and it's something that we as people need to consider strongly.
Thank you.